Hello and welcome back to the podcast, bros. As always, it's me, Aviz Ratsumargi, and today we're going to be doing something different and discussing about the podcast today, right? As you guys might have noticed in the past couple of episodes, we've been trying a few different formats. Sometimes it's two people, sometimes it's three people and all that. But as of late, the whole thing has fallen on my shoulders and it's just been me. So today we're going to be discussing the state of podcast, how we got started, and what's the team like that does the podcast and all that, and what's the idea behind the podcast and all that, the general stuff, and the kind of contents we're going to be delivering from now on, right? So let's take it from the very top then, and let me give you a little bit of a background story on how the Podcast Bros got started. So back almost a year and a half ago, right? Me, Gaurav, and Ashwal. So Gaurav is one of my closest friends from high school. We've known each other for ages, and we were in the same boarding school and all that. So because of that, we are very close. We went to study to Australia together and all. And so we've been close forever. And Ashwal is my first cousin, right? And we grew up together, so he's always been around and all that. So, and we used to work out together in the gym and all. And Gaurav, me and Ashwal, we were discussing about how we were not very happy with the state of YouTube, especially the Nepalese content and all that, right? And one of the reasons being is because some of the contents that are being published in Nepal's format is either interview based or very comedy based, and because of that, what we thought was we knew about multiple different things and we were interested in and passionate about a lot of different things. So we thought that maybe we could fill in the void, of the whole podcast. Podcast, by the way, loosely termed, but the whole scenario, right? And so we thought that maybe we'll cover sports, movies, TV shows and all that and see where it goes. And maybe we'll do funny content as well every once in a while and all. But we were sort of adamant that we wanted it to be in English. And one of the reasons we wanted it to be in English is because we thought that, first and foremost, our English is much more stronger than our Nepali. That doesn't mean we don't know how to speak Nepali. We can speak very fluent Nepali, but every once in a while, when you want to use some specific term or words, we do not have the dictionary for that in our Nepali vocabulary. So because of that, we kind of oriented ourselves to become a more English-oriented channel. And after that, we had a studio available and recording system and all that. So we thought, why not, right? So we just jumped into it. And if you see still our first video about a year ago, it's just basic random stuff. And we're just talking about it, making jokes and all that. And if you contrast it to some of the last episodes that we've done, all three involved, we've come a long way. It's been a year plus that we've been making content, over 50, 60 videos that we have done by this time. So we've kind of got proficient. But that was pretty much the conception. We were in a gym and after workout, we were all doing sauna. And while in sauna, we were talking about the state of podcasting or just YouTube content of Nepal in general. And we thought that maybe there is a space that we can fill in the void. And we do understand that speaking in English does alienate a huge chunk of the crowd, but we do try to keep it a little bit more simplistic than what the Western contents are created. Because of that, I think it's a little bit more approachable than some of the topics or videos you can see that are published by YouTubers from America or England or Australia and the rest, right? So that was pretty much the conception of Podcast Bros. We just willy-nilly decided and jumped into the action. And it's been going on since. So that's that, right? And who are the team behind the Podcast Bros? So there are a few people involved. So basically me, I've already introduced us and all that. But the next one is Ashwal, Gaurav. So us three, we were a tandem team, and we were always there. But behind the scenes was Srijan. Srijan was our previous editor, and for the viewers that were tuned into the last video, I think they were able to get the farewell post of Srijan at the end of the video, where we were bidding Srijan farewell as he goes on to his journey to Australia. And because Srijan has now left, we've hired a different editor, and his name is Sandeep Sardar. He's 24 years old. This is the first video we're making with him. So let's see. Hopefully everything goes well. And all the best to Sandeep on his journey in the Podcast Bros. But now he's going to be the new resident editor. And he seems to be more creative, and he seems to have lots of different ideas and all. And hopefully we can explore different formats, different ideas, and different settings as well. So that's pretty much the team as of now that's involved with the Podcast Bros, out of which Ashwal has traveled now to Canada. He's gone on to do his further studies in bachelor's. And for the people that were avid fan of Ashwal, sorry to disappoint you guys, right? And then the next member, the funniest, most hilarious member of our team, Gaurav, he is in America right now. Why? Touring, okay? He's got a life. He's touring. But Gaurav's fan, yeah, even you guys, for the disappointment that you guys have got, I think he's going to be back. He's going to be back within the month or something, and he has a few things to clear up. But I think within like a month and a half, 2 months, I think we would be back to 2 people shoot. Hopefully, let's see, depending on Gaurav's schedule. By the way, Gaurav is such a busy man. But anyways, thank you. So that's pretty much it on all of that. And thank you so much to the team for being available and helpful in all doing our Podcast Bros passion. Right? So what is the idea of Podcast Bros? Why do we do the Podcast Bros, or why even make videos? Even when we have very less views, we're not pushing it on any platform or something like that. So why make videos? So one of the things, going back to the sauna room again, where all 3 were doing sauna, me, Gaurav, and Ashwal, the thing was that we were talking about so many different interesting things. Right? And in the span of like 10-15 minutes, we talked from like why the noodles that you can eat, to astrology, from there to astronomy, you know, and then like whatever, like science, this, that, and all. And we were like, bro, we can talk about so many different things. So, and like there's nowhere where we can just discuss this things just like that, right? Like you cannot be in a friendly conversation with people and then get into a conversation about what happened like 800 years ago, this, that, and all, because the conversations is different. You know, you're not having a information-based conversation most of the time, right? So that was kind of the inception of it. It was the inception of the idea of what we wanted to do regarding the videos for the Podcast Bros, right? So the motto of what we want to do is, in general, topics that we are interested in, and these might be super arbitrary, right? It doesn't have to be one thing or the other. And we do understand that it will alienate a few of our regular viewers or something like that. Because if you go 2 weeks before, then I covered the content of gaming, right? But if you go a few weeks before than that, then we are talking about history of Israel and Palestine. Right? And if you go a few weeks before that, then we're talking about deepfake AIs. If you go much more further than that, then we are covering football. If you go like more further, so like you get the point, right? Like we cover anything and everything that we are interested in, and we do. For the time being, this might be something very arbitrary, but what do we also know is that there are people out there that that also have similar wavelengths of thinking, you know, because they consume so many different kind of contents. So for them, this could be that one spot where they can get multiple coverages also. The drawback to this, of course, is that, for example, the viewers might be wanting us one sort of content, but that might not be dropping in the week. So that means they might be disappointed. So that's the other thing. So this is something, the pros and cons that we have weighed. And this is much more of a passion project, by the way, for the people out there. So that's why we are kind of not like a more like a rudderless boat, just going with the flow. And we do weekly basis, and the reason for that is, yes, you've already heard the team sheet, and from that you might have pretty much gathered that we are the only people that do the research on this, right? And because of that, we do need a little bit of time for covering everything that goes into it, and we also try to be as careful as possible not to give misinformation out, and also give both sides of the equations on any topic, right? So sometimes it might be super scientific reasoning versus conspiracy theories, and sometimes it might just be research based knowledge versus what we feel, right? So because of that and the kind of research that we try to do, however optimal it might be at this moment, we do take our time, and because of that, it takes us a week to kind of process everything and all that. And that's the first reason. The second reason being, all three of us kind of work, right? We have a full-time job besides doing the podcast. So because of that, it also takes up a lot of time of our day to focus on our work. And then the few hours that we can steal from the day, we dedicate it to the podcast. And sometimes we do it all together. Sometimes we do it separately. But that's pretty much been the whole process. So that's pretty much everything that you guys might want to know about the podcast, the idea behind the podcast, what was the conception of the podcast, who are the teams behind the podcast. And now let me cover a few things that we might be doing for moving forward with the podcast, right? And of course, knowledge-based contents are always going to be there. That's one of my favorite kind of content, not only because we get to impart it to the people that watch it, but also our knowledge is also increased as we do research for this. And okay, so in a humorous way, yes, there is a threat of Alzheimer in the world, right? And keeping your mind sharp, it doesn't hurt, Okay, anyways, that's a lame joke. But anyways, it's just fun to keep your mind sharp and, learn new things, find out about new territories and new ideas and all that. And sometimes it's very challenging, sometimes because sometimes you're so set in our ways of thinking about the world that it becomes tough to digest the content on our own behalf when we are researching it. And then sometimes it's like mind expanding as well, where you're like, oh shit, like I didn't know about this or I didn't know about that and all that. And then of course we will go back to, once Gaurav is back, we'll go back to the semi podcast based. And what do I mean by that? So it will be imparting knowledge or information about a certain topic and then going into the discussion of it, right? So the semi podcast based kind of content is also going to be there. This is something that I've been wanting to do for a long time, and that's where you guys might be able to explore our Nepalese voice much more, but an interview based format, right? And in an interview based format, we have thought about interviewing people from all ranges and all backgrounds and stories and all that. But the content might also differ on the language. Some interview format might straight up be just pure Nepali, some might be pure English, and some might be in between. So that's also something for the viewers out there that are looking to be prepared for. Finally, a full-on podcast-based form where it's just me and Gaurav and maybe someone else that we might tag along, or it's just me and him. And if Ashwal is able to join, that would be fun as well, but he's in Canada, so complications. But anyways, so a full-based podcast-based where we are just off the cuff discussing different topics, different current affairs and all that. And then finally, things we enjoy. And this is the most important part about the Podcast Bros, right? The reason we do Podcast Bros is not for the money, it's not for the popularity, it's not for anything. It's basically just having a platform where you can talk about things that you want to without anyone else interrupting you, right? And that might sound super, what do we call it, narcissistic on our end, but sometimes you have so much information and knowledge about a certain topic, it feels wasteful to just pack it up in your mind and not use it. So it's much more fun to just explore it. And generally, when we're doing these type of content as well, we are exploring the thought as well as we are talking about it, right? So it also gives us a platform where we can evolve our thought processes and go into new branches and themes about our thoughts and all that. So The things that we enjoy could vary from movies, right? Some general ideas that's very, what do we call it, arbitrary, and concepts, or it could be vlogs or anything that we might enjoy. So this can range from anything to anywhere and be posted for that as well. I won't promise that things we enjoy section very regularly, but every once in a while, maybe once a month or once every 2 months, we'll do something like that. And that's pretty much it. If you guys have any further questions, please feel free to ask, and we will be there in the comments responding. And yeah, looking forward to interacting with you guys. But that's pretty much it on the state of the podcast. You might also be able to see some different kind of setup, some different kind of lightings for the podcast as well. But that's pretty much it. Thank you so much for tuning in, and that's the end of the state of podcast episode. See you guys in the next one. Peace.